Hello, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Read with Day 26. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a great ride reading the Bible with you as we continue today, Day 26. We are reading Exodus chapter 14, Exodus chapter 15, and Matthew 17. I hope that you're ready to read with me. Invite your friends, let them join us. Share this link on your WhatsApp status, Instagram story, Facebook, wherever you have friends following you. Share with them so that we read the Bible together. I can't believe we're already on Exodus 14. Didn't we just start Exodus? Yeah. So last we read the Israelites had finally left Egypt and they were on their way in the wilderness, to go worship God. Getting right into it. Welcome. As you join me, please feel free to drop a comment so that I know exactly who and who are with me. Exodus chapter 14, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal Zephon, before it shall ye encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that it shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariots and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with an high hand, but the Egyptians pursued after them all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea beside Pihahiroth before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord, and they said unto Moses, Because there are no graves in Egypt, thou hast brought us away to die in the wilderness. Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. So imagine Pharaoh was telling these people, Come out with me, let's go and serve the Lord. And they were like, Please leave us here, or let's just serve the Egyptians. This slavery, we are content with it. Let's just be here and be serving as slaves rather than going out to the wilderness to serve God, because we fear that the Egyptians will not let us go, or if they let us go, they will come after us and kill us. I wonder the type of mentality you need to have to prefer slavery than, trying to get freedom even at the expense of death. Um, Hi, Christiana. Hi, Gladys. Thank you for joining me this evening. Verse 13. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. One of my favorite verses in the Bible. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. It's interesting how the first part of this verse is my favorite part of the verse, but the second part is the popular one that we hear in prayer meetings all the time. The Egyptians you see today, you shall see them no more. Verse 14. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift up thy rod and stretch out thine hand over the sea and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon his host, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of Egypt, the camp of the Egyptians, and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one came not near the other all the night. So the Israelites were currently walking through dry ground, walking on dry ground through the sea, and the pillar of cloud that would lead them in front was now behind them as a pillar of cloud. And for the Egyptians it was darkness, but for the Israelites it was giving them light. That is the power of God. God is able to do exceeding abundantly above all you can ask or think. Whatever you think your needs are, God knows them better than you do, and He's able to provide for you whatever those needs are. Hi, Olamide, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Um, and the story of the Israelites crossing the Red Sea always, reminds me of God's ability to provide. God's ability to provide for you beyond what you think you need. You're asking God, oh God, I need this thing sorted out. But God is planning something that will sort out a lot more. That thing you're asking inclusive, right? The Israelites were seeing the mighty hand of God live and direct. While He was saving them, He was destroying their enemies, or rather their enemies were the same place they were entering through and finding salvation. Their enemies were entering and finding destruction. Very profound. Verse verse 24 now, right? No, verse 21. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left hand. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning, what that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, and they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. The Lord will fight for you in the name of Jesus. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch forth thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea turned to his strength. Then, when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them, but the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left hand. And the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. Exodus chapter 15. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He is become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him an habitation, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. You can guess what came to my mind. I'm the liquid metal. Oh my God. The Lord is a man of war, the Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank unto the bottom as a stone. The right hand of the Lord is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sent forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble, and with the blast of thy nostrils the waters were gathered together, the flood stood upright as an heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil, my lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. They did blow with their wind, the sea covered them, they sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O Lord? Among the gods, who is like thee? Glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders. Thou stretched forth thine right hand, and the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab trembling shall take up hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea. The Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them. For the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea, and Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name is called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters, the waters were made sweet. And there he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them, and said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments and keep his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. And they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. Next, we are reading Matthew chapter 17, and we will call it a night. I think the children of Israel are some of the most interesting people in the Bible. More interesting than the Pharisees and Sadducees, in fact. Are they not the same family? Interesting people. Matthew chapter 17, verse 1. And the 6 days and after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and he was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise, be not afraid. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, Tell the vision to no man, until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. And his disciples asked him, saying, Why then say the scribes that Elias must come first? And Jesus answered and said unto him, Elias truly shall come first, and restore all things. But I say unto you, the Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but had done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. Now I want to quickly say, this whole transfiguration experience is always very interesting to me, because the Bible is clear that Jesus is the focus. You read through the prophets and the law, and the focus is Jesus. Even at this point, it was instructive that Jesus picked these three, took them with him. He was transfigured, and then Moses appeared. Elijah appeared. Moses represented what? The law. Elijah represented what? The prophets. And all of them were transfigured, all three of them. And then, of course, the disciples, recognizing Moses and Elijah, were like, hey, let us build a tabernacle. One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. And God immediately clarified to them, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Here, this is the focus. Hear ye him. He is the focus. Jesus is the focus. The law and the prophets have been fulfilled in Christ. So by the time they lifted up their heads, Moses, representing the law, Elijah, representing the prophets, had disappeared, and they could only see Jesus. In Jesus, the law and the prophets are fulfilled. It was clear what God was trying to help them see here, and it's just beautiful to see how God is so kind to tell us these things, show us these things, so that we can understand clearly. Verse 14. And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is lunatic and sore vexed, for oft times he falleth into the fire, and oft times into the water. And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then came the disciples to Jesus apart, and said, Why could we not cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, Because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, Remove hence to yonder place, and it shall be removed, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. Nothing shall be impossible to you. Howbeit, this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. And while they abode in Galilee, Jesus said unto them, The Son of Man shall be destroyed into the hands of men, shall be betrayed rather into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and the third day he shall be raised again. And they were exceeding sorry. And when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, Doth not your master pay tribute? And he said, Yes. And he went, and when he came into the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, What thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Peter said unto him, Of strangers. Jesus said unto him, Then are the children free. Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go down to the sea and cast a hook and take up the fish that first cometh up. And when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. Take that and give unto them for me and for thee. May God bless reading of his word. I want to quickly look up um, this from verse 19, or rather from verse 20 to verse 21, because in verse 20 Jesus is saying, if only you have faith like a mustard seed, you can do this, you can cast out this demon. And then in verse 21 he says, nevertheless, this except goeth not out except by prayer and fasting. So I want to make sure that I understand better what he's trying to say there, because there are people who have said, oh, you don't need to fast. As a Christian, you don't need to fast. Fasting is not something we're supposed to do. But this is Jesus specifically saying how prayer and fasting is efficacious. But at the same time, it's important to understand it very well, so you don't think he's saying your faith alone cannot do certain things, that you need to fast and pray before you can do certain things, that some things are impossible to do except you fast and pray. We need to understand where the balance is between faith and fasting and prayer. Reading from the NLT, verse 20 and 21, it says, you don't have enough faith. Jesus told them, I tell you the truth, if you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. So NLT does not even talk about prayer and fasting at all. Like this verse 21 that says, this kind goeth not but by prayer and fasting. NLT does not mention prayer and fasting at all. So a note here, it says some manuscripts add verse 21, but this kind of demon won't leave except by prayer and fasting. Compare Mark 9:29. What does Mark 9:29 say? Mark 9:29 says, Jesus replied, this kind can be cast out only by prayer. So again in Mark 9:29, NLT just says prayer. And then it has a note that says some manuscripts read by prayer and fasting. Interesting. So did God really say this? Did Jesus really say this type does not go out except by prayer and fasting? Maybe that's another thing I want to do a study on. Um, okay, that's nice. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are from what we've read today. Tell me what struck you from Exodus, what struck you from Matthew. What are you going to study more on after this evening? What are you going to read again? What questions came to your mind as we were reading? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you, Christiana, for joining me this evening. Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Olamide. And the fourth person who did not leave a comment, who I do not know. Please do well to join me again tomorrow. Do well to share this link with as many people as you can so that they can join us and be right on track with us. If you are watching this as a replay, do well to drop your comments as well. I will respond to as many of them as I can. Have a lovely, lovely night rest. See you tomorrow.